This is a confusing one for me. It's, you want to save money, and I've been blamed many times in my life for being cheap. But what I will tell you is sometimes that will bite you. Now don't click off. Don't click off. Trust me. I sit in both camps. But one thing that I found about getting older, and this is a moment when I realize, in fact, I am getting a little bit older. You start to realize your mistakes, and you start to see what things have been made easier for you. So let's crack this open, because I don't want you and your garden to suffer if you don't have to. I've had gardens in multiple places across the country. I've had 4 or 5 different gardens. I've been privy to a couple others within my family. I've done some work on some farms and stuff like that. And now that we have turned this into our homestead, there's a lot of different things we do. And I will say this, the cheapest option is not always your best option. I'm all about saving money. You work hard for your money, I work hard for my money, and I don't think you should waste it. And I also think that you should make educated, informed decisions. And in today's world, everybody wants to save $1, right? Inflation's stupid, pay is low, I get it. But I got a comment recently, and I'll just summarize it for you, that really made me think, and I didn't comment back because I wanted to make a video. And they say, my cheap nature has hurt my plants. I'm trying to understand, I must make some upfront investments in good quality tools. And the supports, they used bamboo sticks for supports and sticks from their yard for tomatoes, and it didn't work. And they fell over and broke, and they lost what they were doing in the process. Now, I know that there's a craze about using stuff you find, and I'm all about it. But at the same time, we've got to be realistic about what we're doing here and what we're growing and how we're handling it. So there's a lot of different ways you can look at this. You can hear the nasty comments coming already. So if we look around the garden, I need to take you to a couple places. First of all, let me take you to this trellis here. So this is a solid trellis now. I got some good quality T-posts. I got some good quality, I can't remember what it's called. It's in the concrete section of Lowe's or Home Depot. But I got this, and I used to have wood stakes in here. The problem is the wood stakes rotted, and then my entire crop fell over. And guess what? It got ruined. So we went ahead and we bit the bullet, and we paid for it, making this a permanent structure. In that process, yeah, we had a good trellis for a couple of years. Now I'll tell you, those stakes there, they're gonna last years and years and years. They'll probably be in the ground after I die, hopefully. Hopefully not. Hopefully they'll break before I die, because that means I made it. But you never know. So, yeah, in that time we had 3 wood stakes in there that held it up. We used, I took a 2x4 and cut it in half, long ways. So we had, a 1x2. And then, ultimately we lost $8 in that process. So, it's like, hey, that's not much. But if you start thinking about it and you start adding it up, it's crazy how much $5 here, $5 there, $5 here will add up in the long run. And you don't even realize it over the course of the year. All kinds of ways you can do this. We ended up, and this is when things really started to click for me. So it started to click for me when I put in this in-ground drip system, right? I had used sprinklers, I had tried to make stuff work. I had devised a sprinkler system with the long sprinklers on PVC pipe. It worked really good until it didn't work really good. As my garden grew, I was having dry spots. So I bit the bullet and I spent $400. And what I got out of that $400 is an entire drip system all the way across here. Got all the plumbing for my seed starting area back here. I'll show you. Out of that, I've got the plumbing for the sink here. There's a huge spider web. I am not trying to stick my hand into that spider. But all of this, all the line that goes all the way up back to our house on this side and this side. I got another system up here that I use for a hose, and I have the greenhouse totally plumbed and ready to go. I have everywhere, and I still have stuff left over, because as you do things, it does break. But you know, that money, I was buying $20 sprinklers at a time every couple of years. You know, I probably wasted close to $100 in sprinklers that aren't worth a damn. So in the long run, it hurts. And I would say, like, you know, for right now, if I need quick watering, I bought this little $5 sprinkler. So that if you don't have the money up front, which I understand, get something cheap and save your money. You know, don't go to McDonald's and buy a $20 value meal. Don't go to a restaurant for I mean, this year, and I'm not really trying to tell anybody how to save money, but just to tell you how we do it, we made a pact that we weren't going to go to a restaurant for 3 months, the first 3 months of the year. And in that first 3 months, we did the math and we saved over $1,000. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy, you know? So you can see how that stuff adds up. Now, when it comes time to buy a tool, you know, you may want to buy a cheap tool, and this wasn't an overly expensive tool. And I actually hate using this. It doesn't work great, but this tool right here is 10 years old. We spent 10 years ago, 20 bucks, so it's probably 40 bucks now, but it's lasted and it's been used and abused and beat up. So, you know, I'm not saying, and I don't sit in the camp of, I need to buy the most expensive thing ever. I sit in the camp of, I want to go mid-range. So let's say we're looking for something here and we wanted to, you know, let's just go back to the trellis, for instance. So we wanted to figure out something for that trellis. We wanted to do some kind of stake. So what I would do now is I look at this trellis, I say, okay, what are my options to use? And I said, well, what's the cheapest? Well, the cheapest is wood. Then what's the most expensive? So the most expensive, which would be the absolute best, and there is flaws with this, but the absolute best would be like metal pipes that go all the way up, right? But on the other side, first of all, you can get these used off of Facebook all day long. You can find them on the side of the road. You can do all that stuff. So the issue with this as of right now, and we're testing it this year, is once this plant goes up and down, is it gonna bend this over bad? Now I do have a way to support it. I'll just strap something to this. But you know, you may have to do something like that, but we wanna see how that's gonna handle. Now, there are times when cheap is the best and it works great. And for that instance, this cattle panel right here, you know, there's a couple reasons why we have them. Cattle panel and that one over there, they're cheap. They're very, very sturdy, and they last, and they're really not expensive, and they can take a lot of weight and a lot of plants can go on them. So we look at that and we say, perfect, right? So it doesn't always work out that way, but that's an absolute best way to do it. And cattle panels may not be for you, but for me, that was the answer. Now you also get into, like, let's go back to the tomato stakes. So I did the same thing where I was pulling out tomato stakes out of my yard. And I'll show you what I was using if I can get back there. 2 beehives I'm trying to grow right now, so I'm not really trying to get all up in them, but let's see here. Good night. That is what I would call 4 spider webs. Let's get them out of the way. Bye, spiders. So what we did, this is what we have in our yard. We have this bamboo here. This is a small one. We don't get those big fat ones, but we do have these. 2 things I do. One, in order to prepare those to use, and I'll tell you how I use them in a minute. It's not for tomatoes. I cut them in the winter time, and I find the biggest ones I have. Now this isn't the kind that you make, the kind of bamboo that will grow big enough to make blow darts and stuff like that, blow guns with and all that. But we get the biggest ones we can, and we do it in the winter time, and we cut them, and then you have to dry them, because if you stick them in your garden while they're wet, guess what? They can reproduce and take over your garden. You'll never get rid of them. So just keep that in mind. And 2, what I do after that is I cut them into 2 to 3 foot sections, and I use them to tie up smaller plants. So I'll use those for peppers and stuff like that. Now, Actually, only for peppers. In my garden, you're gonna say, well, I don't see you tying them up. And that's because I didn't want to tie them up this year because I got tired of fiddle farting around with it. And it was kind of a headache. So sorry that the wind's kicking up, but I wanted to see how it would do. So we're doing, just testing it out this year. But if we have to, we'll go back to it. That looks like is me storing them in buckets in the wintertime, trying to keep them all together. Remember, I'm having them, pull them out, putting them in. It's kind of a nightmare, but it's really cheap. But for tomatoes, and I may have to bite the bullet this year. My tomato cages are dying for me. I may have to bite the bullet and spend some money. I need to really sit down and look at it and say, what am I growing this year? And I know everyone says, do the Florida weave. I don't like the Florida weave. I'm not gonna do it. Don't tell me to do it. End of story. I'm gonna figure out some kind of better cage that I can add into it, and I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and purchase them. And it sucks, but these, I've been using them for about 10 years. So that initial investment lasted me 10 years, and things will give out over time. But when you're doing your garden, you want your cost to be upfront and not necessarily reoccurring, right? So you want to buy a shovel once. You don't want to buy it 3, 4, 5 times. Just buy a shovel once. You know, all the tools that you know you're gonna use the majority of the time, get good ones of those. And the stuff that you're like, I'm not gonna use it that much, get those cheaper. But try to build over time, you'll build it up more and more so you get better and better tools. You know, our shovel we've had for 10 years and it's not had a problem with it. Well, it is starting to go, but when it does, we can replace the handle on it and then everything else lasts. It hasn't bent, nothing like that. So you wanna try and do the best that you can. When it comes to our shade and frost protection arches here, there's nothing cheaper, and really from what I can find, nothing better than these. And that works out great, but not everything is going to be the same way, and we need to understand that. Been there, I've wasted a lot of money and all that stuff. Now, let's talk about reoccurring costs real quick. I know a lot of people don't use fertilizer for multiple reasons, but if your reason is because you don't want to spend the money, but you want to make it, I will tell you this, once you use it, you will understand what you're missing out on growth. I get it, I understand. It's a reoccurring cost, but how damn much money do you want to save? Because this entire garden, all around me, this whole garden, the plants themselves cost me for all year, 3.5 seasons to 4 seasons of growth. All of this, all cost me roughly about $45 in seeds. You know, my garden all together, my budget for my garden, minus water and minus any kind of structural repair, my budget for the year is about $250. But we had that upfront cost, and it does suck and it is hard. So I understand. Why do I use treated beds? Because I can take the money that I save, instead of buying one of those fancy ass metal beds for 4 times as much, I can build my entire garden with those. They'll last me years. I expect to replace them, and I know that. But over time, I can use that money to replace and buy other things. I can buy other tools. I can put in watering systems. I can buy shade. I can buy frost protection. I can do all of these things in the same price that if I just put in the metal beds. Just think about it. Use it to your advantage. Do what you want with that information. But for me, that's what works best for me and my garden. And I'd hate to see somebody grow a plant and then something fail when it's an easily replaceable, easily preventable problem. So I like saving money, but I can tell you this garden right here saves me a lot more money, and the more successful it is, the more money I actually save, and I realize it in the long run, and the less trips I have to go to the store and put my credit card in front of somebody. Goodbye.